Stand by.
Today we're going to talk about the Lead and Steel PB-3. Shout out to Lead and Steel. They are one of the podcast sponsors and the sponsor of this video in particular. If you guys don't know what the PB-3 Pandora is, this is their mailbox style optic closed emitter that they released, I want to say middle of last year sometime, and were nice enough to send one out to me. We're nice enough to send one out to Josh. We've been running these things since March, early March, late February, something like that. Absolutely love them. The window is actually pretty generous. You guys can kind of see there. It's supposed to be 30% larger than the Acro, and by picture comparisons, because I've never played with an Acro, it does appear that it is in fact bigger. Doesn't have a shake wake function, so if that's kind of what you need, then maybe not the best optic for you, but it uses the Acro footprint. It's outstanding. We've had absolutely no issues with it, really like it. But what we're going to talk about today is holster fitment. So before I jump in, so you guys can see, this has been checked. There is no ammo in this gun. Today, current state, this is a Safariland 7TS with the expanded hood system. This is what I have been running. I've had no issues with fitment. I don't like this hood because it's really flimsy and crappy. But there is a nub mod for it. You guys can see that there. I really like the nub mod from OTS Defense. My biggest problem is, simply put, with the 7 series of holster. It's been fine for me, but I know there's been a lot of failures with this line of holster, and that's why I think largely a lot of people have stuck with this, which is the Safariland 6300 series. Shout out to T-Rex Arms, ordered some goodies from them. That's what we're going to be talking about today. This is how it comes from T-Rex, if you guys are looking for a place to get it. So this is the Glock 17 holster, which will fit 17s, 45s, 19s. It does have this little goofy wing on here, which this is going to end up coming off. We're going to end up modifying this holster to make sure that it fits the PB-3 correctly. Now, comparing the two here, this is made out of polymer, which is a little bit different. And the 6300 here is actually made out of Kydex, which is why it's going to be a little bit easier for us to modify this. Now, as things sit here, I'll show you guys, this will actually work. This will fit. I do also have an Emissary handbrake, or I'm sorry, paddle shifter on my X300, which Emissary site says you do need to modify the holster ever so slightly. But even without the modification, it will fit. You have to be careful a little bit. You can see it's a really, really tight fit there. And then also fitting around this little wing is problematic. So the wing's going to go because I don't really like the wing. We're going to adjust the molding of this hood here, which means that this guy, which can't close all the way anyways, just because of the size of the PB-3, this is going to come off. We're going to go over that. And we're going to just make the 2 small adjustments. One for the paddle shifter, so that doesn't get pulled off or accidentally activated or anything screwy like that. But also, we are going to talk about how to make this just a little bit bigger. So let's jump into it. Okay, so for today's project, we have the holster. I also, from T-Rex Arms, picked up a couple of goodies to go with it. This is the OTS Defense, multi-muzzle plug. And what this is going to do is help ensure that I have a nice ride height in the holster with my Glock 45. Since it's a Glock 17 holster, you typically will get a little bit of wiggle. This is the 1.45 inch. There's a great chart on the T-Rex Arms website, which again is why I just bought everything through them, on top of their awesome customer service. I got this. It's going to be pretty easy to install, and it's going to just give us a nice tight fitment there. And also the Ghostmen Designs Portal, which is going to replace this standard light cap here on the bottom. And all this does is kind of put a little porthole in the bottom, so if there's any kind of debris or material that should end up in the holster, it has a place to go rather than just collecting at the bottom, and then you can't get your holster working, you can't get your gun in there, get it out, possibly cause some kind of malfunction. So let's talk about what we're going to need to get this done. A lot of people will tell you need a heat gun because you need to go ahead and heat up that Kydex to remold it, and if you have a heat gun, that's great. You don't need one. I've actually modified several Kydex holsters for concealed carry purposes. I had a Bravo concealment holster back in the day that was just a little bit too tight and I needed to adjust the fitment. So what we're going to use is a super tactical hair dryer that I stole from my wife. Thank you, wife. This will work fine. It's just going to take a little bit longer to heat up the Kydex. And I actually like this approach because you have to go slower, take your time, maybe make a little bit slower adjustments, which for something like this, where you're trying to custom fit, is probably a good thing. Also, you can use an Allen key. I have a magnetic screwdriver with an 1/8 inch hex bit. I like the magnetic screwdriver a little bit better because it's magnetic, which means none of the screws are going to fall off. You're not going to lose pieces quite as easily. It's just a little bit more convenient. And I'm pretty sure the 1/8 inch is standard hardware on all Safariland holsters. Also have some painter's tape. You don't have to. I like to, whatever I'm molding with, so whether it's a flashlight on a weapon or if it's an optic, I like to put a couple layers of painter's tape, 1 or 2 layers on there. It kind of helps to protect the optic a little bit, but also gives you that little bit of a gap, because what we're shooting for here is a more forgiving fitment. So everyone pretty much should have some kind of blue painter's tape or masking tape. You could probably even use duct tape if you needed to. You just want something there to create a barrier between the optic and the holster itself. And now lastly here, gloves. Kydex gets pretty warm. It has to get to the point where it is flexible, malleable, where we can adjust it for what we need. You can do it with your bare hands, or maybe if you want to just mold it around or push around with the end of a screwdriver, you could try and do that. That's pretty imprecise though. Anytime I've done it, I always use gloves just because it gets pretty warm and I don't want to burn myself or anything like that. So some gloves. These are just some really easy Gorilla Grip. I think like $5 a pair or something at your basic hardware store. You could use pretty much any kind of glove that isn't just your basic outdoor winter glove that you had when you were 5 years old, something that's going to respond poorly to the excess levels of heat. So that's pretty much all we need, nothing very special. So let's jump in and get started. So we're going to take our 1/8 inch hex bit here. We're going to remove these 2 screws to take this hood off of the holster itself. Should be pretty easy. They're not, torqued down. It's mostly just a protective device to prevent access to the ALS lever. These come off pretty easily. I don't believe that they use any kind of thread locker or anything like that. And what I like to do, I like this little lineman mat because it's got little spaces and everything. So once we drop these screws out, we can take any of the associated hardware that's with it. I'll go ahead and put the screw back in just for now. Actually, you know what? Let's not. Let's drop that out of here. And that is retained. Those little threads are retained in the holster, so we'll leave it. And the next thing we're going to do is just pop this hood off. Okay, all you got to do for that is, or at least all I'm going to do is, we're going to pop it open, and you can kind of get an index finger in there and pull out, and it pops right off. So you can keep this if you want. I don't know what you would use it for, but the shape of this overall hood is not going to be the same when we're done, and it wouldn't clear the optic anyways. Now let's go ahead and we'll just put a couple pieces of painter's tape around the optic body. It doesn't have to be super pretty here. Again, it's kind of like what you would do when you're painting an optic, but in reverse. We're just trying to cover the optic so it doesn't come in direct contact with the Kydex specifically. So we're mostly worried about the top portion here. By having 2-3 layers of painter's tape there, not the worst idea in the world. Again, you don't have to do this. I'm going to do it just for my own peace of mind, and that's pretty much it. So here's 2 now, and you want to try and press this down. We don't want like loose edges or things like that to be hanging out there. The nice thing about painter's tape too, if you are concerned at all, is that painter's tape by design is not going to take a finish off of anything. Not that we have to worry about, the finish on the optic, but some people are weird about it. I understand. So there we go. Okay. So now I got a couple layers on there. Let's do one more. So a 4th layer, just because I'm being weird. That's okay. Oops. Now we've got just a little bit of a layer here around the optic that's hopefully going to help us out. See? There we go. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead, we're going to glove up, and we're going to go ahead, we're going to take the hair dryer. It's probably best if it has a multiple power setting like this one does. You can just turn it on high, and then let it go because we are going to want to heat this up to make it nice and malleable. Again, the two spots we're going to be focusing on is this little ledge right here. You can kind of see that is where our paddle shifter is going to hit. So we want to bring that out, and then we're going to want to open up this hood. We're going to start with this because it's the smaller piece of work. There we go. Now it's nice and straight. Now that's going to mean that our hood is probably not going to fit the right way again, but that's okay because I didn't want that in the first place. So we just want to flatten that out as much as we can here. Now that we see that that's a little bit flatter, we have a nice amount of clearance there for our paddle shifter, which means phase one is complete. We're going to let this sit and cool. We don't want it to, the memory and the material to take over and reform. Okay, so this edge here is now taken care of. We have nice, good clearance. And when we insert, you guys will see this actually does, oops, try and make sure you keep that tape down. If you'll look, this actually does insert and clear. It clicks in, we get good retention. It's just a little bit tight on the fitment, you can see around here, especially at the top corners. So we don't have to do a ton. We just want to give this a little breathing room. So we're going to repeat the same process. We're going to heat this up, and then we're going to stretch it out. So you can see we have a little bit more clearance now around those edges, which is what we were going for. Holster still retains. Everything clears up. No problems there. So did have to go ahead and heat this edge up a little bit after the fact, you guys. Kind of inserting this or splicing this back in. So this edge could end up interfering with the battery compartment when you're going to reinsert if it's not at a perfect angle. So I did heat that up and bend it out of the way ever so slightly. Doesn't interfere with the use of your ALS or anything like that. Didn't pull anything else out of place, but I just want to make sure we have maximum clearance all the way around. Okay, so now moving on, we are going to replace the plug and this light cap, for lack of a better phrase here. And what this is going to mean is we're going to actually have to remove this factory screw, and the plug that's sitting in here and the cap will come out. And this is what we're replacing it with. This is the OTS Defense muzzle plug kit. So you see it comes in two pieces. This is plastic, this is metal. And once you just insert it together like this, we're going to end up replacing this piece of the plug with this included screw. Now the nice part is it comes with the hex key that you need. So when you insert it, you don't have to do anything extra. And then we'll just use the included hardware in the bigger hole here. So we got the muzzle plug out. You really might have to fight with this a good bit. I had to use a flathead screwdriver to kind of pry it out, because that little retaining plug here is in that hole pretty good. So now this is exactly how this is going to be inserted. So it's going to sit like that. So what we do is we drop this in and line it up. And then when we have the two holes lined up, what we'll do, we can start this screw and we'll just come back in from the top. And there's a great video that OTS Defense does. Before we tighten this guy all the way down in this front hole here, we'll make sure that plug is properly seated so that it sits flush. Okay, now you can feel it click into place. We'll go and tighten this. And we don't have to tighten this, we can just get it pretty close to tight. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to reinsert our back plug and our factory hardware here on the other side to complete the muzzle plug kit. So reinsert that. And again, this is our 1/8 inch screw hardware. Get that down pretty good. Doesn't have to be super tight. And then come back and tighten this down. We're in good shape. So that, if you were just installing the muzzle plug kit, that would have you all set. Now, if you're doing this separately, maybe you only had the Ghostmen portal, or maybe you just wanted to take the normal plug, drill a hole in it, and reinsert it in there. You could do that if that's your prerogative. I want to do it in 2 separate pieces for you. So now what we're going to have to do here is pop this Ghostmen portal in where we had the factory plug. So again, we'll take our 1/8 inch screw here. We're going to loosen this, and this will just pop right back in. Maybe not right back in. Cool, not perfect, but there's your install. So if you want to line up the logo here, we'll go ahead and line up the logo for funsies. And then all you got to do is make sure, don't forget once you get installed, see we have some space here, we go ahead and we retighten this screw back down. Okay, so there we go. Now you got your muzzle plug kit and your portal. Okay, so now we can go ahead. If you did your tape job the right way, you can just peel from the bottom, take this all off at one go. There's our painter's tape. We'll clean that up later. And for all of our safety people, this is now a clear weapon. And we have successfully modified the opening here, as well as the bottom, and we have modified the clearance for our paddle shifter on our X300. So now this should slide in, absolutely no problems. You guys can see we have nice good fitment around the optic there, and we'll drop test here, drops right off. So there you go. If you guys are running the PB-3, which is a fantastic optic, I would really recommend it. You guys can head over to leadandsteel.co and check them out. I think at the time of this video, these are actually on sale, the flat dark earth ones. You can pick one up for yourself. They have the mounting plates available as well. It's a great optic. And if you're looking for holster compatibility, the 6354 RDS does work. You just have to give it a little bit of love with your hair dryer, and you're good to go. So hopefully this helps you guys out if you were thinking about it, or thinking about picking up one of these optics, already have one, and you want something with a little bit more retention than just a regular level 1 Kydex holster. So this is now my new everyday holster setup. The only thing this is missing is the nub mod from OTS Defense, which I run on all my Safarilands. But at the time of this video, OTS has to rework the nub mod because there was a change in this design by Safariland. So they're working on a new nub mod. I'll just have to wait and cry until it comes out, and then I'll throw one on this bad boy, and this will be good to go. So hope that helps you guys out. Like always, make sure you check out our podcast on Spotify, follow us on Instagram, make sure you guys hit the bell, hit the like, hit the subscribe button here on YouTube. Helps us out tremendously, and we'll talk to you guys next time.